Hey guys, welcome to my house. This is how we're going to do school for a while. Um, you should get your packets in the mail probably today, because today's Tuesday when I'm doing this right now. If you don't get them by like Wednesday night, message me, call me, text me on that phone number that I put on Google Classroom, 816-425-0399. Or just message me on Google Classroom and we'll get you a packet. You can also go to the school's website, and the thing that pops up about coronavirus, if you click on that and then scroll down, you'll be able to find the packet online. Please, 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 please go get food today. You can go to on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and they'll give you like plenty of food to get by, breakfast and lunch. Go to East High School, Northeast High School, Central High School, or the African Centered Education Building over by the zoo. Most of you don't live down there, but that's where they're giving out food. They're also giving out packets there. So get that, all right? We just want to make sure that you guys are safe. Stay away from people, follow the rules, because here's the thing. You may not get sick, but your grandma may. So you need to follow the rules, and the sooner that everyone follows the rules, then the sooner that we can get back to life. And I miss you all, and I miss getting out, and I miss seeing my friends. There's some things we're working on. If you don't have enough computers at home, I'm making phone calls to some students' homes. Miss Mendez is, Miss Mail is, I think Mr. Peterson's going to. We're trying to get an idea of what our students need during this time, so that, because we've still got to learn. And yay, we don't have to take the MAP test, but smart people are cool people. So, in the packet, which, by the way, I didn't make, your first reading you have is a really long one, okay? The Monkey's Paw. Read it by yourself if you want to. Read it with me. I'm going to read it here, but I'm not even going to read the whole thing right now. I'll make that a video for tomorrow and have that in two different sections. So let's start. So The Monkey's Paw by W.W. Jacobs, 1902. And you can read that little thing about him up there. But I'm going to start there at paragraph 1, just like we do in class. Follow along. Without, the night was cold and wet, but in the small parlor of Laberman Villa, the blinds were drawn and the fire burned brightly. So a parlor. A parlor is like an old home's, kind of like what the living room would be today, sort of, but like they didn't have TV and stuff like that. So it would be like the area where people would kind of gather at night. And I guess Laberman Villa is probably the name of they would name their houses. Father and son were at chess. That's the game. The former, who possessed ideas about the game involving radical changes, putting his king into such sharp and unnecessary perils that it even provoked comment from the white-haired old lady knitting placidly by the fire. "Hark at the wind," said Mr. White, who, having seen a fatal mistake after it was too late, was amiably desirous of preventing his son from seeing it. "I'm listening," said the latter, grimly surveying the board as he stretched out his hand. "Check." "I should hardly think that he'd come tonight," said his father, with his hand poised over the board. "Mate," replied the son. So they're playing chess. I don't play chess. I don't understand it all, but check, mate, that's all part of it. "That's the worst of living so far out," bawled Mr. White, with sudden and unlooked-for violence. "Of all the beastly, slushy, out-of-the-way places to live in, this is the worst. Pathways a bog, and the roads a torrent. I don't know what people are thinking about. I suppose, because only 2 houses on the road are let, they think it doesn't matter." "Never mind, dear," said his wife soothingly. "Perhaps you'll win the next one." Mr. White looked up sharply, just in time to intercept a knowing glance between mother and son. The words died away on his lips, and he hid a guilty grin in his thin gray beard. "There he is," said Herbert White, as the gate banged too loudly, and heavy footsteps came toward the door. The old man rose with hospitable haste, and opening the door, was heard condoling with the new arrival. We'll look at that word in a second. The new arrival also condoled himself, so that Mrs. White said, "Tut, tut," and coughed gently as her husband entered the room, followed by a tall, burly man, beady of eye and rubicund of visage. My gosh, guys, there's words in that I don't even understand. It's craziness. So what were the words? Condoling. To express sympathy with someone who has experienced trouble or misfortune. The beady eye of a rubicund is red or reddish, it says at the bottom. And a visage, that's the face. I wouldn't have chose this for you to read. Sergeant Major Morris, he said, introducing him. The sergeant major shook hands, and taking the proffered seat by the fire, the one that's offered, you could say, watching contentedly while he got out whiskey and tumblers, and stood a small copper kettle on the fire. At the third glass, his eyes got brighter, and he began to talk. The little family circle regarding with interest this visitor from distant parts, as he squared his broad shoulders in the chair and spoke of strange scenes and doughty deeds, of wars and plagues and strange peoples. 21 years of it, said Mr. White, nodding at his wife and son. When he went away, he was a slip of a youth in the warehouse. Now look at him. He don't look to have taken much harm, said Mrs. White politely. I'd like to go to India myself, said the old man. Just look around a bit, you know. Better where you are, said the sergeant major, shaking his head. He put down the empty glass and, sighing softly, shook it again. I'd like to see those old temples and fakirs and jugglers. What's a fakir? A monk of the Muslim or Hindu religion, often thought to have supernatural powers. What was that you started telling me the other day about a monkey's paw or something, Morris? Nothing, said the soldier hastily. Leastways, nothing worth hearing. Monkey's paw? Said Mrs. White curiously. Well, it's just a bit of what you might call magic, perhaps, said the sergeant major offhandedly. His three listeners leaned forward eagerly. The visitor absent-mindedly put his empty glass to his lips, and then set it down again. His host filled it for him. So do you really think that maybe the sergeant major wants to talk about this monkey's paw? If I'm reading it, I'm thinking he doesn't really want to talk about it. And so that's probably what we got to find out. To look at, said the sergeant major, fumbling in his pocket, it's just an ordinary little paw, dried to a mummy. He took something out of his pocket and proffered it. That's like offered it. It's a weird word to say, an old-time way to say it. Mrs. White drew back with a grimace. She's not happy. But her son, taking it, examined it curiously. And what is there special about it? inquired Mr. White, as he took it from his son, and, having examined it, placed it upon the table. It had a spell put on it by an old fakir, said the sergeant major, a very holy man. He wanted to show that fate ruled people's lives, and that those who inherited it, and those who interfered with it, did so to their sorrow. He put a spell on it so that 3 separate men could each have 3 wishes from it. So what's fate? Fate is when you say, when people say everything happens for a reason, that's kind of like fate. So saying this whole coronavirus thing is happening for a reason, what reason would that be behind it? So it would be that's fate. Or you could say, sometimes they talk about you meet your loved one. Well, it was fate that we met. I don't believe much in fate, but some people do. But here's saying that those who interfered with it, so if you do things to stop your own fate, then to do it to their sorrow would be saying bad things are going to happen. His manner was so impressive that his hearers were conscious that their light laughter jarred somewhat. "Well, why don't you have 3, sir?" said Mr. Herbert White cleverly. The soldier regarded him in a way that middle age is wont to regard presumption's youth. "I have," he said quietly, and his blotchy face whitened. "And did you really have the 3 wishes granted?" asked Mrs. White. "I did," said the sergeant major, and his glass tapped against his strong teeth. "And has anybody else wished?" inquired the old lady. "The first man had his 3 wishes, yes," was the reply. "I don't know what the first 2 were, but the third was for death. That's how I got the paw." His tones were so grave, serious or solemn, that a hush fell upon the group. "If you've had your 3 wishes, it's no good to you now then, Mr. Morris," said the old man at last. "Why do you keep it for?" The soldier shook his head. "Fancy, I suppose," he said slowly. "If you could have another 3 wishes," said the old man, eyeing him keenly, "would you have them?" "I don't know," said the other. "I don't know." He took the paw, and dangling it between his front finger and his thumb, suddenly threw it upon the fire. White, with a slight cry, stooped down and snatched it off. "Better it burn," said the soldier solemnly. "If you don't want it, Morris," said the old man, "give it to me." "I won't," said his friend doggedly. "I threw it on the fire. If you keep it, don't blame me for what happens, Pitch. Pitch it on the fire again, like a sensible man." The other shook his head and examined the new possession closely. "How do you do it?" he inquired. "Hold it up in your right hand and wish aloud," said the sergeant major. "But I warn you of the consequences." "Sounds like the Arabian Nights," said Mrs. White as she rose and began to set the supper. "Don't you think you might wish for 4 pairs of hands for me?" Her husband drew the talisman. Talisman is an object thought to have supernatural power, so that's this monkey paw, from his pocket, and then all 3 burst into laughter as the sergeant major, with a look of alarm on his face, caught him by the arm. "If you must wish," he said gruffly, "wish for something sensible." Mr. White dropped it back into his pocket, and placing chairs, motioned his friend to the table. In the business of supper, the talisman was partially forgotten, and afterward the 3 sat listening in an enthralled fashion to a second installment of the soldier's adventures in India. "If the tale about the monkey paw is not more truthful than those he has been telling us," said Herbert, as the door closed behind their guest just in time for him to catch the last train, "we shan't make much of it." "Did you give him anything for it, father?" inquired Mrs. White, regarding her husband closely. "A trifle," he said, coloring slightly. "He didn't want it, but I made him take it, and he pressed me to throw it away again." Did you catch that this woman called her husband father? It's not that her husband is really her father, her dad. It was just kind of an old way to say it. "Likely," said Herbert, with pretended horror. "Why, we're going to be rich and famous and happy. Wish to be an emperor, father, to begin with. Then you can't be henpecked. So henpecked, bullied or intimidated by one's wife or girlfriend." He darted around the table, pursued by the maligned, spoken about if evil or harmful. Mrs. White, armed with an antimacassar. What the heck is that? A small fabric cover for upholstered furniture to prevent from becoming dirty. Mr. White took the paw from his pocket and eyed it dubiously. "I don't know what to wish for, and that's a fact," he said slowly. "It seems to me I've got all I want." I'm going to stop there, okay? It's a long story, y'all. And it's got, like I said, a lot of words, so I would really pay attention to those words at the bottom. Go back through and kind of read through that. And I'm going to go down to the discussion questions. Let's see if there's anything there so far. We'll go over the questions another time. So let's talk about fate. All right? Like, do you think that everything happens for a reason? I said I don't. I don't really believe in it, but some people really do. And then are there supernatural powers? Does God, if you believe in God, control everything? These are all things that I think that this text is asking us to think about. And you can read the rest of it on your own, or you can join me in another video that I'll post tomorrow, finishing it up and talking about it. All right? I miss y'all. Take care. If you need anything, let me know. All right? Bye.